promised I would ask you why you've got this
the beard
facial construction.
Aye, so there might be people who watch this that kind of recognise me. I've shaved my head for years. I started losing my hair when my oldest son was born. So in 2000, there's actually a photograph of Cameron, who's behind the cameras. There's a photograph of him as a wee baby, and he's resting in my arms. He'd just come home from hospital that day, and I'm sort of looking down, full head of hair. And then immediately after my first child was born, I started losing my hair. So in about 2008, it was razor, because we're going on holiday, and I thought, right, I'm going to need to put sunscreen on, and it was just kind of like I'd had it as a number 1 or a number 2 razor, and just kept it with that. But I didn't start growing the beard until Christmas Eve 2015. And there's a reason for that. So I kind of wanted to. I thought I'd quite like to see if I could grow a beard. I'm not sure how it would look. And when you're bald, you're kind of featureless. It's weird.
Create some contrast.
I don't have strong eyebrows, and I don't have like really strong features. So some bald guys get away with it, but I always felt it's just a sort of blank egg of a face. So I'd fancied growing a beard, but with work, you know what it's like with work. You've got. I don't know if you've ever tried to grow one, but you've got that 2 or 3 weeks where you don't. It just looks. You look messy because you're just
and it's not designer stubble either.
It moves from designer stubble to being, come on mate, are you a tramp? Get that sorted out. But in 2015 Christmas Eve, I had a heart attack.
Wow.
So basically after having the heart attack, I knew, well, I'm not going to work for a month. I'll try growing a beard. So nice. I did. I grew a beard, and I just kept it. And that was 3.5 years ago. So, and that's how I met Stuart.
So I'm trying to work out the connection there.
Yeah.
So you had a heart attack and decided to grow a beard.
Aye, because you're just. I couldn't go to work. I wasn't allowed to drive for a month, so I couldn't really go anywhere or do anything. I knew it wasn't going to be meeting clients or in client premises. I thought, well, now's the chance. So I came out. I mean, I was in hospital for 3 days, so I hadn't shaved when I was in hospital. So I came out of hospital, jumped in the shower, shaved my head. I thought I'll just leave it. So. Aye, that was it.
And do you identify with your beard now?
I do identify with my beard. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, so we like to give our friends and our contacts some love, and that kind of fits, I think, with our theme. We said we would talk about networking today. When we first met, I guess that that was one of the things that we talked about. It was our first networking meeting. We were networking when we were meeting, but we started talking about the dynamics of networking and whether we feel comfortable with it or not, and how important it was for our business, and we hit on a couple of interesting themes, so we said we would pick that up for this podcast. So are you a typical networker, do you think?
So this is one of the things we talked about. Obviously, in a position where I'm trying to grow my business again, networking is really, really important. People tell you that. You need to get along to networking events. But I hate it. I think when we spoke last week, I called it forced bonhomie or something like that.
Forced bonhomie. I love that phrase. I'm going to get a t-shirt with that. Forced bonhomie.
We're into networking events. And I'll explain the reason why. I feel like obviously the purpose of networking is to meet new people and talk to them and ask them questions and learn about them and sell yourself, hand out business cards. That's how I perceive it. I know you're kind of maybe rolling your eyes a wee bit.
Yeah, I'm just checking it out, really.
But that's how I see it. And for me, it just gives me the bulk. It just gives me the dry heaves. I don't mind sitting down talking one-to-one, but getting into a room full of strangers and I struggle with it. I'm not a big fan.
Okay, so how do you overcome it?
Well, that's what you're going to tell me. Well, you made a really, really. We were talking last week, and we referred to this in the pilot episode. You shared a wee gem of information about how you approach networking, because you said everybody goes into networking with the same frame of mind, and it's like we want to feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Obviously, it's a big part of it is how you think about it. If you go in thinking that everybody's trying to sell themselves. So if you go in thinking that you have to sell yourself, that's the first thing. Maybe your assumption is everybody else is trying to sell themselves.
Yeah.
So your whole frame of reference is we're going to all meet in this room, we're all going to try and sell ourselves to each other. So that is like a really weird environment. You would never do that anywhere else. Whereas if you go in maybe with a kind of just a broader sense of I'm going to get to know folk and create some interesting conversations, you start to think about it differently. So one of the things we were talking about is like where people feel a kind of anxiety. So if you set yourself up with an expectation you have to perform like a performing monkey, you're going to, then you're going to have.
That's quite a visual.
Whereas if you go in,
chimps in a room.
Yeah, and like we were saying in the last podcast, people ultimately will try and keep themselves safe, you know, and if it feels really unnatural, you'll do anything to avoid that.
Yeah.
And people do, like you'll hear people, they'll shrink away in network meetings or they won't go. And we know we can talk about the value of networking in a second, but so a big part of it I think is part of getting comfortable yourself is making other people feel comfortable. I think because ultimately that's a nice way to be. I'm a big fan of being nice in business, not just because it's nice to do, because it works, it's effective. So if you bring other people in, you make them feel comfortable, they're going to be much more effective. They're going to be able to share a lot more about what they do for their business, so you can find out a lot more about them. And then also, you know, it puts you at ease. You know, it's not all about you, where you're the centre of attention. I think if you're doing all the talking at networking,
right,
that's not a great idea.
So you made a really good point, or you explained to me, you go into a room with these people networking and you're kind of aware that everybody's kind of in the same boat, we're trying to keep ourselves safe, but you made a point on how you approach a group of people to try and ingratiate yourself into the conversation, and you don't go up and go, "Hi guys, I'm Andy, here's my card, what do you do?"
Right, well, I think there's a couple of things about this. First of all, there's your overall mindset about networking. So if you're like, if you set yourself up to perform, like I say, you get really uncomfortable. So there's a mindset part, but also I think there's tactical parts as well. Like if you walk up, if there's a group of 4 people and they're all facing each other, tactically that's not a...
Kind of elbow your way in.
You have to elbow your way in, right?
Which is a bit awkward.
So if you look over to a group of folk and you see 3 people standing and there's a kind of space, that's a really good opening. So you go up and you start to listen. So I might join in with the group and just listen. That is my participation. A lot of people think they have to say something.
So you'll cycle up and just start using these before you use this?
Possibly, that's one way to do it.
But does that not, to be devil's advocate, does that not make you look like
a stalker,
like a creepy stalker standing at the corner?
Well, like we said before, context is everything. So people understand
you're meant to be there.
You're meant to be there. So you're taking an interest. So if you walked up to a group in the pub and you started just sort of listening in, that would be weird. But in a networking environment, you know, just starting to listen in, taking an interest, and then say, "Oh, that's a really interesting point. So what was your name?" And you start a conversation that way. The other side of it is if you're already in the group, it might not even be a group. It might be 1-on-1. And if you see someone else wandering by and they're trying to figure out how to connect, you say, "Do you want to join in?" I was just talking to Bob there about whatever you were talking about, and then invite them to join in. So again, you're facilitating, you're making other people feel welcome and connecting instead of thinking about all the things that you're trying to say.
I think that your last point there about noticing other people sort of wandering about and maybe looking a little bit uncomfortable. The last networking event I was at, I just avoided doing any networking because I don't feel I'm very good at it. You're going to help me improve, right? So
we're going to go along. We might, as we said in the last video, we might meet you folk out there, and we're going to try and connect with you.
Yeah, and get your thoughts into the Social Experiment podcast. But at the last networking event, there was a woman there called Lisa Donati who has a business called Gate Laldi, which is a great name. It's a brilliant name, and basically she's got a kind of little artist collective, and they make products, so mugs, t-shirts, all that sort of stuff. They've actually just released Iron Brew flavoured chocolate, but all the products have classic Glasgow expressions on it, like your Dacel's Avon, that sort of thing. It's absolutely brilliant. So it's cards and t-shirts, hoodies. There's like kids clothing that says Wee Wido. That's the branding on it, which is really, really clever. Anyway, she was a bit like me. She was sort of wandering about and trying to keep ourselves away from everybody else in the networking. Her and I ended up talking for ages, and we networked because we're both approaching the networking event from the same point of view. So I suppose it's that whole trying to have rapport with people, recognising that, you know what, I don't feel uncomfortable, you don't, I don't feel comfortable, you don't look like you feel comfortable. There's that rapport there from the start.
It starts to break down. I tell you the other thing that makes a difference as well. If you think networking is just about events,
Right.
you have to turn up for an event. So it's like, okay, I'm preparing myself, wear my best aftershave or whatever, turn up for the event. It becomes like a whole thing.
Yeah.
Whereas, I've always believed that opportunities to either learn about other people's businesses or just to learn, not even about business, but just to learn, pick up ideas, happen anywhere and everywhere. Some of my best so-called networking experiences happen on the train, or at a bus stop, you could say, or at an airport. So it's the same kind of behaviour that when you turn up to an event, you're just doing the same kind of thing. So the event really just amplifies the opportunity to meet people, but networking shouldn't be limited to events. I remember I was on a train coming back from Edinburgh, and I met a good friend of mine, a good contact, Lynn Fairservice, who works in change recruitment, a great recruiter, and she was, maybe I shouldn't tell this story, she was reading a book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, and she told me that her boss at the time had asked everyone to read a chapter and to present on their chapter, right? And what I saw reading the book, I could see that she was reading it in a certain way. She looked like she was studying. I said, I couldn't help but notice that you were reading the book in this way. And she explained that her boss had asked everyone to read it, but she hadn't read her chapter.
So she hadn't done her homework?
She hadn't done her homework. So I said, well, listen, this is my thing. I know this book very well. I'd be really happy to give you a quick cheat sheet on it, and we can keep in touch. Let me know how you get on. So I just did that for her, and I did that because I'm a geek, and it's fun for me to try and summarise a chapter of a book like that. But I also know as well that getting to know people who are great recruiters and things like that, that's really useful. And then we've kept in touch over the years, and then in recent years we've connected up again. We met for coffee recently, and that's just because you start making connections.
Yeah.
So I think networking events then are just a way to amplify the opportunity. But networking really is everywhere. It's in the barber shop, it's in the bus stop, it's at the train station, it's at even social environments. If you get invited to a wedding, it's networking all the time. Now, of course, we've got social media, LinkedIn. It's just that creating the opportunity to get to know each other. I think it's the relationships that will count. Do you really have something in common? I think the reason we're doing this is we had so many things in common, and we had so many interests, and we had so many ways of riffing with the ideas. I think that made our networking work. But you can always have a conversation with someone, and if it doesn't quite work, then it's like, oh well, that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, good to meet you, shake hands, walk
brilliant.
on. Yeah.
And I think the other thing is doing what we're doing, which is we're doing it naturalistically. We're mentioning other people's names and things like that. I think networking is, you could formalise it tactically. I mean, if I teach networking, I formalise it tactically so that people understand the power of it. But naturalistically, people who are good networkers do this naturally, which is, you connect other people. Now, socially, if you're at a networking event, that means you introduce one person to another. If it's on LinkedIn, so for example, I had one contact email me saying, oh, we're looking for L&D people, learning and development people. And I had another contact, an old friend, saying, oh, I'm looking for an L&D job. And I was like, hey, you guys should speak to each other. Yeah. Now, what's interesting about that is you could Machiavellian way of thinking about this, say, well, this person knows your favour and that person knows your favour, and of course,
there's a degree of reciprocation. You're fine, sure, and you come. There's a degree of reciprocation should go on in that.
But I think if you appreciate, well, I guess it's a kind of an informal way of saying it's like what goes around comes around. But I think if you think networking is selling, actually we could do a whole podcast.
So is networking not selling yourself though, or is that where I'm kind of, if I get the wrong view of it?
No, I think networking is networking.
Right.
Now, so actually I get a lot of value from networking by meeting people who might do a service for me, or might educate me in some way, or might give me an idea or think of an opportunity. Like someone might say, oh, it'd be great if we had a workshop on something, like I struggle with this. Oh, and I get an idea from it. Or, for example, you know, if I need a graphic designer or whatever. So the worst time to network is when you're trying to sell yourself.
Okay, makes sense.
So networking then becomes like a continuity. It's just like a way of being. You're connecting with the world. We're social animals, right? And it becomes a resource. Now, back in the day when we were hunter-gatherers, like if you knew how to hunt or you knew how to gather, that was the way to do well in your tribe or whatever. Now it's like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. You know, so in my mind, networking is a continuity. There's an opportunity all the time to make connections. So to that extent, I only call it networking when I'm training it. I don't call it networking when I'm doing it. I don't say I'm going to go for a network. That's like saying I'm going to go for a romance, or I'm going to go for a... Like, I wouldn't do that. Like, so for me, I only call it networking to give it a formal name if I'm training it or coaching it.
So is it really just humans being in the same room and just getting to know one another? And is that oversimplifying it?
Well, no, in some ways I think it is that simple. I think the difference is, like, so again, I'm going to get all psychology geek about it, but like we're tribal animals. We're designed to function in small tribes. So if we only lived in a tribe, I would know what your expertise was. I would know that you're good at hunting or you're good at making an axe. So I would come, so you're going to help me with this. But of course, our scope and our demand is much greater now. I need many more skills. I need many more resources to do well in business. I need people who are good at working cameras and mics. I need people who are good at graphic design or accountancy or IT or coaching or leadership development or whatever, all these different things, right? Yeah. So because we live and work in that kind of economy, we get our resources differently. So for me, it's just a way of amplifying our social nature. Anyway.
Okay, it's definitely, it's given me a lot of food for thought, and I'm probably going to need to listen back to this again to kind of let it all sink in, because I think I did see networking as a means to sell yourself. So I know I'm not good at selling myself. I know I'm not. You know, give me 5 minutes one to one, and I can pretty much tell you what I'm about and stuff, which helps, but not in the contrived environment of networking. Where you go in and you know, I think it's because I've been to some networking events, and I think what you're saying is right, is delineate networking events from just networking. So networking is when you and I had a coffee the other week and we're just chatting. That's networking. But I'd been to networking events where it was the kind of round table thing, and everybody does a 1 minute introduction as to who they are, and it's just, my God, it's cringe.
Well, they're kind of interesting, but they're special cases.
Right.
I mean, they are, you could say they're contrived to amplify certain things. So it's a bit like you go to some networking events and like speed dating. That's fine, but you need to understand that that's a special that's a special example of it. So I think to understand that networking is not sales, I think that's a really core idea. I'll tell you something else is, like, again, one of the things we said we would do in these podcasts was talking about like flawed advice. I think a lot of the ideas that we hear about networking makes it feel more contrived and sort of worse than it really should be. So the idea that you should have an elevator pitch.
Yeah,
Jesus. We talked about this briefly before. So I think elevator pitches are very good for very... there's very few contexts you're ever going to use that. Now, if you're in Dragon's Den, you're going to use that. Yeah. Maybe if you're trying to get a grant or funding or something like that, an elevator pitch might work.
But an elevator pitch in a networking setting, as in two people getting to know one another, etc., it's a bit robotic, it's a bit one-sided, isn't it? There's no real room for conversation involved. Somebody interrupts your elevator pitch in the middle of it. You could
well, if you think about it, so what I like to do with advice is, like, I like to, like, almost like, imagine writing down advice and saying what underlying principles would have to be true for this elevator pitch to work.
Yeah.
Or for this bit of advice to work. And if you do it with an elevator pitch, if you were to write down the unwritten rules, it's something like, we only have a short amount of time to get to know each other, and I must impress you in a short amount of time. But in most normal social environments, that's just not the case. So we might start talking, and we might realise, we have some common interests or whatever. But we can continue to get to know each other. We can build a relationship. It's the same idea, like the old idea about like first impressions.
Yeah.
Well, there is such a thing as first impressions, but there's also second impressions. So if the first impression doesn't quite work, you don't stop there. You don't go, I blew my first impression. I'll just stop. You keep going. So a lot of the ideas that people try and use to make themselves feel better about networking sort of makes it worse, I think, sometimes. So if you think that I have to build a whole relationship in a 30-second soundbite, I mean,
it's totally,
what kind of crazy thinking is that?
I think particularly from the point of view, you use the word relationship, a business relationship. So what's a business relationship? One of the ways that a business relationship shows itself is the exchange of goods, services for money. And if that's going to happen after just 30 seconds, that's pretty crazy.
Well, okay, so I'll give you another analogy. So I believe that something like LinkedIn, for example, which a lot of our viewers will probably be on LinkedIn, say, that should be at best it's an extension of what we should do naturally. So it's a lot of people think they're networking when they're on LinkedIn.
No.
So that's not quite right, is it? So LinkedIn is you could say it's a dynamic database, but it's also a way of like producing these kind of media experiences. But it's not by itself. It's not building relationships. Now that shows up when you get an invite. Yeah. Like maybe from someone you've never heard, and like I might respond and say, "Hi, like what brings you to my profile, whatever," and they say, "Well, I sell these amazing services and da 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 da," and it's like, man, you don't know me, I don't know you. It just seems really appropriate. I tell you, it's the equivalent of meeting someone and saying, like, can we be best friends now? Should we get married? We've just met. Can we get married? It's
and
like,
can you pay me as well?
But it's just like totally inappropriate. Yeah. So, so if there is business if there's business opportunities there, it should flow out naturalistically from the relationship, and the relationship that's a real thing, not a computer thing.
I think so. But we'll start to wrap up because we're going to be hitting the half-hour mark soon. I think it's interesting sort of segueing between the face-to-face networking and then the virtual networking on something like LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's a social network and it is the business social network. And you're right, that whole thing, you get a connection request, you accept it, and then 30 seconds later you've got this pre-typed out copy and paste email from them where they're pitching their services to you. I think to get value out of LinkedIn, and this is something that we're trying to do with this series, is offer value on LinkedIn. So we're going to be posting wee sound bites and snippets from our conversations, because the stuff that we're saying we believe is of value and is of worth. So you're trying to build up a pattern of offering value and worth on that as a social network, and then later on down the line people can approach you on LinkedIn and say, tell me more about this.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is one of these things where we'll see this slightly differently. I think
of course.
It's one of the big benefits of doing an experience like this with someone else. We kind of see it slightly differently, and the two differences give you a third dimension.
Which is authentic, to go back to the theme we're trying to create. It's authentic.
So, my view on this is, like, I hope that people get value from it, and I hope that, that they, of course I want them to see and think, that guy Andy knows about networking, or that guy Andy knows about psychology, or Mark knows all about social media. I'd love for that to happen, of course I would. But as much as that, I want it to start a conversation. It would be great if people saw this and they said, I've got this other idea. Yeah. So I wouldn't want to limit a conversation to one single thing. So, like, going back to the practicalities of networking, I wouldn't want to I'm not going to limit a networking conversation at an event to trying to get the sale.
No, of
because
course.
When I limit that, not only do I discount all the other opportunities, but I'm not very good at the actual, like, it's not effective for selling either.
Yeah.
So in the same way, I wouldn't want to limit this to any kind of like soundbite way of thinking about it. Yeah, we want to offer value, but like I'm hoping that people will feed in ideas to this.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So I think content like this on a social network like LinkedIn, we want to have as many benefits as possible. So one of them is expand our footprint. So you'll be exposed to the people that know me, and I'll be exposed to the people that know you on that virtual network. Absolutely. Well, up to a point. We try and keep it PG-13 and all that. But the soundbite thing, I think, is the reason I thought of the soundbite thing is because of the Joe Rogan podcast, because it's hugely valuable. As I don't know whether I actually said it on camera in the last one, but the whole idea of expecting people to sit and watch something that's 2 hours long, like the Joe Rogan podcast, versus 5 minutes, 10 minutes here of just little sound bites where you go, oh, that's really, really interesting, and then you decide, I'm going to go and listen to the full thing, or I'm going to look up who that guy he was interviewing was, I'm going to get his book, I'm going to watch his videos. I think if we're trying to do that as well, so we're offering something of value in terms of we soundbite comments that also benefit us, because people go, that's really interesting, I want to know more about what Andy does, I want to know more about what Mark does. I don't really know what a point is with that, but basically we're taking content into the world of social networking, and hopefully it will benefit both.
Well, it's a little bit like if you go to a networking event, you listen into a conversation and you think, well, this is a conversation I want to be in on. I want to be in this conversation because that's like a really cool conversation. So I'm hoping at some point this conversation will get cool, right? And people and people think, well, that's I want in that conversation. So the value happens out of having the conversation rather than like trying to create value like some kind of
I think there's inherent value in conversations like this. I don't think it's contrived or forced. It's just like we're talking about. I'm being honest about how I don't like networking, and you're going, Mark, get a grip of yourself, view it this way instead.
No, well, the flip side of it is that I'm compassionate about that. I totally understand that. There's so many people that get nervous about it. But again, I think it's because a lot of the advice that people get makes it worse. But we all have things that make us, when we're put contextually into a slightly odd environment, like this is my second podcast now, right? Last one was the first one. It was good. Oh, it's slightly odd. You have to get used to it. But it's only me you get good at things.
Definitely.
So putting yourself... One bit of advice, a very practical thing about going to a networking event is go along and don't sell yourself. Just go along and listen. Just do that for your first one. That's like the equivalent of going in the shallow end.
So do you mean like just hovering around the edges, just observing, just listening to conversations and see how other people are doing it?
It's just like getting into the shallow end.
Make yourself more familiar with it.
Just be there. And you'll see people who do sell themselves, and you'll realise why you don't want to do that. And you'll see people that bring people in, and you think, that maybe I want to be a bit more like that. And it's not, and then you don't have to try so hard to do that stuff. You just find your natural way of doing it.
Cool.
Equally, I would imagine people like this, at first they'll just start watching. Like I know for a lot of the kind of podcasts and YouTube type stuff that I like to watch, for a long time I just watched, and then eventually it's like, maybe I'll chip in. So a lot of people will just watch this at first, and then they might get comfortable chipping in. We could like have a conversation. No,
I mean that's going to be the ultimate goal. It's funny because what I tend to do when I watch content like this on YouTube is I'll do it full screen on my iPad. It tends to be I'll watch on my iPad, so I'll do it full screen on my iPad, and then a couple of minutes into it there'll be maybe one or two things said, and I'm thinking, and then I make it normal size, and I go down to the comments and I'll see if anybody else has picked up on it, and you usually see somebody going, did you notice at 2 minutes 15 the guy said such and such, and then they'll leave a comment, and then you see the replies to that. Unfortunately, the habit of doing that is now when I'm watching TV shows on the TV, I'm going, right, where's the comments? I want to read the comments. But I think that's the conditioning that we're now under. Like we see a bit of content, and then there is a network of conversation that goes on around content online, which is pretty good, I think, because then you can really explore and expand out an idea. And like all these things, and you'll hear me say there's a flip side to these things as well. So I've got this idea that we're in an ideas economy. Okay. Like, so
we talk about being in an information age. I think we've bypassed the information age. I think we're in an ideas age.
Because all the information's out there now.
All the
it's all about
information, like if
ideas.
you want to bake a cake, you can get the recipe for that.
Yeah.
If you want to build a bomb, you can get the recipe for that, right?
Yeah.
So
Probably need to cut that bit out of this, by the way, because it's build a bomb.
we're not actually going to.
No, of course not. No.
So we live in an ideas age. So there are ideas out there that's just bunkum, fake news,
Yeah.
right? And people just are just consuming that stuff. And a lot of the great ideas, a lot of fabulous ideas that are good for humankind and good for just for your own personal development. It's getting lost in the mix. So one of the things I'm really keen to do is check ideas.
Yeah.
That's maybe that's
So basically, again,
value.
it bears repeating. Obviously, we've said that a few times now. Is get involved with us. Let us hear your ideas about the stuff Andy's been talking about networking today. Let us know your ideas as to whether it's a good thing to have a beard or not. There's loads of things that people can share their ideas on. What do you think? Should Andy grow a beard? I think he should. I think every man should at least at one point in their life have a full beard.
Maybe if we get what should we say? So if we get to 100th episode or 20th episode or whatever, I'm just going to appeal with the biggest bushy beard.
Each week it just gets a little bit longer and a little bit longer. Right, I think we'll start to kind of wrap up there. So we've been talking about networking, some misconceptions, some preconceptions, maybe some new ways to approach networking. What do you guys think about what we've been talking about today? Wherever you see this, get involved. It is called the social experiment for a reason. We want people to, on social networks, come back with their ideas and their comments, and then that gives us something to chew over.
If you've got tips on networking, share them. If you think some of the things that we're talking about doesn't work, share it.
Yep.
I think either way is going to add value, because I think I'm here to learn as well. I hope we get. Yeah, I hope we get that as well.
I also think if people want to share their worst networking experience, everybody's got one. So that networking event, networking occasion, networking opportunity that was just horrific and has maybe scarred you for life and put you off networking, let us know what it was. That's something we could pick up again if we could hear some real horror stories. And you can dissect them and go, right, okay, what you should have done is, or how it would have worked better would have been.
It's like run.
Yeah. Right, so that's been the first proper episode of the Social Experiment podcast. I'm Mark Hunter.
I'm Andy Curry.
Thanks for watching and listening, folks. We'll
Thank
be
you
back
so much.
with another episode soon.
See you next time.